It is, Joe, how long have you been in radio?
23 years.
Yeah, okay. So I got this job. Don O'Neill helped me get this job 17 years ago or something like that. And, you don't realize the connection you make through radio. It's different than television because people can see you and they're distracted by your hair or your sweater or something like that. But the uniqueness of the relationship, because they can just hear you, and the camera out of there, this thing where people are stuck in their car and you develop this relationship. I certainly realized it really, really got a strong impression because after the passing of Dory, and they called me, KIRO called me on Sunday night. This is 2 years ago, coming up on, it'll be 2 years, New Year's Eve. And they said, would you please come in and we're going to do a tribute to Dory on Monday. So I came in around 8:30 and I figured, because I don't have to read a lot of news. I figured, well, they'll have lots of guests and I'll be on from, 9 to noon. I'll do that 9 to noon or 10 to noon or whatever the slot would be. And while I was sitting there, I think Andrew was there. And the rest of the entire newsroom was empty. And I wrote to Brian Buckaloo, who's taking over after me? And the text back was, you're going to do the whole thing from 9 to 6.
Was it a holiday or something?
No, because they just went with this special programming to honor Dory and Dory's passing. So they had scheduled guests that were going to come in and talk, and Brock Hurd was on the line. We had other guests that came in and sat with us. And so we did that show. And yes, on Saturday, I was in an event, and there were people coming up to me and tears in their eyes talking about how much they miss Dory. I'm like, oh, I know. And I'm talking to them, and they're crying. I start crying. And you realize, especially with Dory, that was a very special relationship that he had with the listeners. And, for us, you don't really get feedback all the time. But I got a text message, and I won't read the whole thing, is that I don't want to give away too much of what this person shared. But they wrote in this very long text that they had a very, very difficult day, an extremely difficult day for their family, involving someone in their family, and a really hard day for them. One of the worst days they've had as a family. And they said that they went home. This person wrote us a text message, which Teeny found, and we had it in the show at the end of the show a couple of days ago. And the person who wrote the text said, I made it home at 5:50 to be able to hear the end of your show. And I heard you read my letter, and I felt the compassion in what you had said. I had a rough time, and I broke down in tears. And I thought back, it was the quickest, shortest little thing that I'd said after I read the letter. Nothing really of great significance. It probably took less than 2 seconds. But the person then went to write this letter, this long text, which I shared with you, Joe.
Yeah.
And it was a great reminder of the unique relationship that develops between the radio host and you, the listeners, specifically myself and the folks that do the show. And it reaffirms why you do it. You rant and rave about me, Fauci, and the stuff in the DNC. But the rest of the stuff that we do and that relationship that you develop, sometimes it's nice to get a reminder of why it's important. And to get this text from this listener and to know that they were having a really terrible day, and then to hear just a sort of secondhand comment that I'd made after reading their text, and they're crying there at the kitchen table, surrounded by the rest of his family. And thank you very much for cheering me up. I've got to compose myself now. And then he finished the text. And it's good to get that every once in a while.
It is far and away the best part about this job. You to your credit, you're a vulnerable guy on the air, and you kind of open up and you tell a lot of stories, and that's what connects to people. You get those opportunities to get to know you. It seems like you're just talking to me, or we're sitting in a room talking to a couple of people, Andrew and Nate.
Well, have you seen the ratings? It feels like we're just talking to the two of us.
The numbers prove it. But we get distracted by those metrics, and like who the heck's listening? But then you get messages like that just kind of reaffirm what makes radio great and very unique.
Yeah, I had experienced something similar to that one time. I was working in Evening Magazine. This woman came up to me. I saw her one day, and she just chance meeting, and she walked up and she said, "Are you John Curley?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "I have to tell you something. Many, many years ago, when did you start the show?" I said, 95. She said, in 98, my son killed himself. I was living alone, and he was my last of my family. Her husband, they'd been divorced, and he took his life. And she said, and every night I would try to just forget about her son was living with her at the time, and I would turn on Evening Magazine just for a half an hour. She said, and it was just, I just had a half an hour of like not having, and just your smile and your stupid stuff that you were doing with Daryl and all the dumb stuff that you were doing. For a half an hour, I didn't think about anything else. She goes, and now here it is. This was some 12 years later or something. She said, and now I just want to let you know, you helped me through a really hard time. It's like, wow. And that is, again, the wake-up call that you need more often than not to the importance of really honoring the relationship that develops. And to get that, I'm reading through his message while I'm sitting here. To get that text is, again, reaffirming as to hopefully why we do it. So anyway, thank you for that text message from that listener. And also a thank you to everybody that helped out with Yelm Football and Yelm Sports as well, because this is the 1 week and 1 day after when they handed over the check. So it's gone to good cause, good stuff. All right. I assume Teeny will still get the letter of the day, right?
I saw her. She's still here, so.
1-888-973-5476. Welcome.
Look at these beautiful flowers.